Welcome back to Keep Expecting Miracles. I am Ilissa.
And I'm Jessica.
We are here today. We're so excited. We have a special guest for you guys. And so we are continuing our ancestor series. This is the second episode. Last week we explained how we discovered our ancestry, just, getting to know the people in our family tree. How we listen to stories from our family members. And so now this is a continuation, a conversation with somebody that we are very, very excited about. So, how are you doing, Jessica?
I am doing so well. Look, I am excited, so excited that we have our first guest. And it was a bit of a rocky morning for me, but I was able to take a few deep breaths this morning and I was like, make today great. And of course, once you do that, you want the day to go great. That means that you have to hold yourself to it. So I'm holding myself to it. That today is still going to be amazing. And right now we have the star of our show, Sara Makeba Daise. Welcome. How are you feeling?
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I am always a little nervous before I do anything and talk to anybody too, but I'm also I feel good. I feel grounded. I'm really happy to talk to y'all. I'm so excited that we all graduated in 2007. I didn't know that. And
Yes.
so yeah, this is just good vibes all around, and I love that you affirmed it being a good day because I feel like it just allows you to focus in on the things that are making it a good day more than the things that are like, what the fuck is this? And so
Exactly.
Yeah.
there have already been some victories in your day as far as I'm aware, and I say for that.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sara, you and your family hold a very special place in my heart. And I know in Alyssa's heart as well, making me smile through dark days and also adding joy into days that where I was already feeling joy, just joy all around. So I wanna actually start off by reading your bio. For people who don't know you, this is a wonderful introduction. Sara Makeba Daise, M.A., she, her, is a Black, queer, fifth generation Gullah Geechee writer, griot, cultural worker, healer, and diviner from Beaufort, South Carolina. She works passionately at the intersections of Afrofuturism, ancestor veneration, intergenerational healing, Black queer erotics and desire, and African diasporic rituals, history, and culture, particularly the South. As a writer, Sara explores these topics through memoir, prose, folklore, and speculative fiction. Daughter of storytellers, culture bearers, and stars of Nick Jr.'s Gullah Gullah Island, Ron and Natalie Daise, Sara's multidisciplinary approach builds on their continuous work of world building, archiving, and affirming Black life. Sara's acclaimed 2020 essay, Be Here Now, The South is a Portal, published in Rootwork Journal, uplifts the South as a portal for Africana and Indigenous resistance and ways of knowing. Her debut book, Sankofa Shadow Work, Diaries of a Diasporic Diviner, 2025, is a literary cosmogram blending memoir, public history, fabulation, and conjure. Following the life and death cycles of a queer Black diviner, griot, and gatekeeper, the stories invite readers to explore their shadows, center pleasure, and heal backwards and forwards in the face of systemic terror. Welcome.
Yay.
Thank you so
Yes,
much. I'm
yes,
so
yes,
excited to be here.
yes.
It's something to sit in. I was like, oh, that sounds so good. And I wrote that, and it's been something to like come into taking myself as seriously and not cringing when it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm pretty dope. So thank you.
Yes, you
Thank y'all.
are.
You are. You
And we could
are.
both relate to that. We be listening to our episodes and we're like, oh, wow. I'll be like, listen, did you hear you say that? And I'll be like, did you hear me say that? Like,
Right.
okay.
Right, right. But you reminded me, we want to do an ancestor veneration, and just honor people in our family who have come before us, just a few people. And so we're going to, one by one, just say the people who we want to honor today. And so I want to start off by acknowledging my dad's mother, Alma Jean Woodson, Grammy Polly. She is my most recent transition ancestor. And so I feel her spirit. She is around me and my kids all the time. And so I wanted to honor her. As well as my mother's grandmother, Annie Dames Tynes, and my mother's father, Carol Franklin Tynes Jr. And so I know that those people, I'm very connected to them. I feel them around me. And so those are the people I want to honor today.
Shay.
Yes. I would like to honor my maternal grandmother, Carmen Victoria Dunkley, and as well as my great grandmother on my fraternal, my father's side. We called her Mama Jim, as well as, well, you know what? That's it. That's where you look. My living grandmother is 100 years old, and I was about to say her name. She's not an ancestor, not yet. So yes, I definitely, those two have been here helping me in spirit over the last few years of my life, and I am so grateful for their presence beyond the realm, and from spirit. How about you, Sarah?
Shay. I want to call Kathleen Grant Days. That's my father's mother. Willie D. Middleton is a great aunt who transitioned a couple of years ago. Gloria Eldridge and Adelaide Eldridge, two maternal grandmothers. And Oshalami Lamoke, that was one of my aunts who transitioned. And I would just say at any given time, the names I've called are present with me, or I'm thinking about them. And to be honest, yeah, thinking about them in the context of my own life. So yes, grateful to bring them in this space intentionally.
Oh, yes, yes. We welcome them and receive them. So, Sarah, we want to just get right into the conversation. We have segments. So, the first segment that we feature is our I am segment. It's the first part of our manifesting, and it represents us and our full divinity, and it's the heart of our show. And so, we just want to get right into it, and start the conversation off. When did you discover that you were a diviner?
Great question. So I learned to read tarot actually relatively recently. I learned to read tarot blackly at the Cecilia Western Spiritual Academy created by J.T. Perry. And that was actually in 2020, maybe 2023. What is time?
Oh
It's
wow,
been,
that's
it was
really
in this
recent.
5 year block. Yeah, very recent that I
Yeah.
learned to read tarot. Prior to that, I was familiar with working with cards. My mom had a deck, largely because she liked the art, but I would, I worked with them. And so I can say that I've become more comfortable identifying as a diviner. With those with that particular tangible tool and skill, recognizable skill. However, I talk about in my book how I really think my divination is in like the legacy and lineage of Octavia Butler, in the sense that not that it's any less mystical, but that it has a lot to do with the patterns and observations and ways that I see the world, that for me feel like, well, yeah, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that, though, no, that actually is a way of knowing a technology that I've been utilizing and accessing for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
since childhood. But again, only now coming into a place where I can confidently say, yes, I very intentionally divine. I use my body as a divination tool. I'm trying to connect with all the sources that I can know and understand and be in alignment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It's funny that you said 2023 too, because I think so. Me and Jessica, we reconnected on a spiritual retreat, and when was that? Was that in 2022?
Yeah, it was 2022.
But
Mm-hmm.
then we both got into tarot too in 2023, and
Girl,
so
that's why I was like, what?
it was like the
Same
same
year.
time
Mm-hmm.
frame, and it's the same with me. Like I just found out that, I mean, I know my grandma had stuff, like she had dream work stuff, but my mom just recently told me like, oh yeah, your grandma had a deck. And so you see things around the house, but it's just like, okay, what is that? And it's the same with me. Like I'm not so confident yet. This is why we have this show and this podcast, is because we want to be more open, and we want to share that side of us. We've had to break, specifically me, I've had to break out of the Christian stronghold of like feeling like this is, all bad. And I was just explaining to my husband the other day, like a gift that my mom shared with me, because she's a very special healer, in our family. I get it from her. And it's just like, how can you, if the spirit, if God is putting something in you, if you're able to talk to somebody in another realm, how is that of the devil? How is that evil? Like it can only come from him. It can only come from source. And so it's, you're asking people to reject what is us. Like I can't reject myself. Like you said, we can use our body, we can use the elements. And so it's, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because I feel the exact same way. The exact same way. So
I think we all have access to that level of knowing, but it requires so much of a shifting from what we've been given,
yeah.
and all the systems that keep us keep us shut off from all the multitudes of things and all the multitude of life that's communicating back
Yeah.
with us and that we are in relationship with. So
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
It's
It's,
We look
releasing of the shame. For me, I'm like, I could have it. I won't say the friend's name, but I have a friend who she's done tarot readings for me, and I was at her house, and she was like, "Oh, as soon as anybody else comes over, if my parents come in, we need to put these away." And I was like, "What?" And she's a gifted reader, like gifted, but she can't let them see it. And I'm like, I didn't realize that she was living with this. It's like she doesn't feel shame like herself, but then she becomes ashamed of it if they see it.
mhm.
And I'm like, I feel the same way where when I first got into it, I'm like, do I just have my cards out? Do I let people see that is out here? Do I have it as my little secret? But I'm not somebody to like hide things like that. And so it's just being able to live authentically and not be afraid to show it, not be afraid of people seeing it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yes. And well, and like we've now shared in a couple of episodes that we have so many gifts, and it's only through certain transformative, things, periods in our life, that we recognize like, oh, this is actually a gift. This is something that I need to use. This is something that is makes me me. I was listening because I read The South as a Portal, but listening to it, I'm glad, so happy you put it on YouTube, because I was able to listen to it, and it just put it in. I was able to visualize and imagine more of it. And so one particular thing that you said, is that people who, you being your full self, and people who are just different from the constructs of like society, like you're just a very fluid, I took it as like you're a fluid person. And so knowing that you're different, knowing that you're fluid, like that's who you're supposed to be, that's how you were made, and that's why you are a gatekeeper. Like you have to be on a different frequency to be a gatekeeper. And I'm like, that is so empowering. Like, how did you come to that?
Thank you so much for everything you just said. Oh, it was such a labor to put that thing on YouTube. So I'm so grateful that it's a medium that is effective in a completely different way.
Yeah.
I first, another ancestor, grandma, sister, Dr. Myrtle G. Glasgow. she was the first person who recommended that I read Of Water and the Spirit by Malidoma Somé, who has since transitioned. He's now an ancestor as well. He's a shaman, a teacher from Burkina Faso. And she told me to read this book in 26, yeah, probably 2016, just real casual. Like, you need to read this book. And I read it in 2017 when I was in my graduate program. And the way that this man talked about the indigenous life of the Dagara people in Burkina Faso was
Mm.
so it was so matter of factly magical and
Mm.
mystical, and like what the Western world would teach us is fiction, is fantastic, is not real. Is like he talked about in the beginning of the book, his grandfather transitioned, and his grandfather was of this particular stature. So when an elder of that particular stature dies, you got to cook food on the ceiling because that's how their spirit ingests the food. And
Mm-hmm.
they did it. And he's like, they don't even, I don't know that there are people in my village that even still know how to do that magic, but it was very much like, this is what we do. We travel all over the world, talk to all these different beings. I was talking about Malidoma Somé
Yes.
and
Yes.
the very matter of fact magical nature of the way that they lived, and I was so inspired by it. And he talked about there not being a word for gay or lesbian in their context,
Mm-hmm.
but they had the word gatekeeper. And he described, both he and his partner at the time, Zabonfu Somé, wrote about this role of these people who vibrated on this particular frequency, and because they did, they they could access particular gates. And I remember
Mm.
feeling like that was so profound and like, oh my God, this
Mm-hmm.
is it's starting to make sense. And it wasn't even until like maybe 2022, again, 2022, 2023, I was like, oh, for all of the validation and affirmation that both Sabonfu and Malidoma gave me by talking about gatekeepers in that very brief way, the
Mm-hmm.
way that I'm just waiting and searching and trying to find more information. They couldn't give me more information because that was not their role. And
Right.
so you talk about like, how did I come up? I just like keep making my life. I keep making my life, and
Yes.
and 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 trying to bring somebody else. Be like,
Yes.
you gotta see that this shit is bananas, and
Yes.
there has to be something else. And I
Yes.
feel like that's largely what it often feels like. And again, very matter of fact, like,
Yes.
it's gotta be something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, I just think that is such an empowering like reframe. Like, I know I mean, my family, we're magical family. So, and I always like, it's in my like language to say, oh, I know I'm on a different frequency. And my mom says it all the time, but it's just like to know, like, yeah, I was born on a different frequency. I am a different frequency for a reason. Like, I am supposed to be here to open these portals. Like, like, I'm not supposed to be like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love that. I love that. When I heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
But so I wrote the name of that book down I just typed it out. You said it's called Water in the Spirit, Sarah?
Of Water and the Spirit.
Of Water and the Spirit. Okay. And who's the
Mhm.
author? Because I'm like, I need to read it.
Malidoma Somé. Oh,
Okay.
it's imperative. I encourage everyone to read it. And Sabonfu Some's work, Spirit of Intimacy. I think you would
Oh,
enjoy both of those works. Yeah.
yes. Yes. Okay.
And of course, it's going to also be in our show notes.
Yes.
So you can just copy and paste it.
Yes, yes. And so, well, I mean, and it's the reason why we wanted you on is because the reason why you're here is obviously to share in conversation, but your new book is coming out. And we want you to tell us about that, and just, what inspired it. I mean, obviously you living your life has inspired it, but just tell us more about, it's called Sankofa Shadow Work, Diaries of a Diasporic Diviner. And so, yeah, just tell us more about that and what to make of it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about it. So this work is years in the making. I would say since 2018, but I'm sure I can go back further to all the cultivating that was taking place. As I mentioned earlier, while in my grad program, 2017 to 2018, I was studying public history, and it was coming off of working at McLeod Plantation Historic Site in Charleston as a tour guide, and just this like horrific anti-Black terror that was happening, not just what I was interpreting on the plantation, but like just police killing Black people and Dylan
Mm-hmm.
Roof killing Black people, and it
Mm-hmm.
was it was horrific and painful. An incredible job and a painful job. And I went to school and started. I became interested in epigenetics via podcast. So I didn't I
Mm-hmm.
didn't go to school and they were like study epigenetics. I
Mm-hmm.
was listening to the Friend Zone podcast in the car moving to Atlanta, and they had an episode about epigenetics, and it blew my mind open. And I had recently been interested in Afrofuturism, and I was thinking about how Afrofuturism as a tool and a perspective could be utilized in public history, and how we tell our stories. And so that's kind of the lens I had going into school. But ultimately, my thesis looked at how Afrofuturism might be used to heal epigenetic trauma, heal our ancestors and ourselves. And Malidoma Somé, who I mentioned earlier, played a large role in that, because the very matter of fact way that the Dagara people live life and heal backwards and forwards and live and interact with their ancestors all the time. I'm like, oh, this is possible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily sure how, but something is there. And so the master's thesis was a creative thesis. I looked at the theory. I used womanist and Afrofuturist theory, looking at the history of Gullah Geechee women during slavery and Reconstruction, and also interrogating like the present day, these kind of parallels of the terror and horror and trauma that we were surviving and being scarred by, as well as possible perspectives and methodologies of healing. I also included fiction like folklore to interpret or tell, bring more life to the theory that I was bringing forth. So, all
Mm-hmm.
that to say, the first half of this book, Sankofa Shadow Work, is that it's an adaptation of my master's thesis. It's looking at how we might heal backwards and forwards with theory, with fiction, with lore. And the second half is how I've been doing that. The second
Mm.
half of the book is prose and letters to my ancestors and myself, and my experience of going back to the academy to get a PhD and realizing that they were nuts and I had to get the fuck out of there,
Mm.
and just the
Mm-hmm.
multitudes of ways that I have been coming into and recognizing myself. Also, kind of realizing that this kind of Africana magic that at the time felt so outside of me, that I felt like when I first read Malidoma's work, like, well, this is evidence that this exists. It might not exist for me, but if it exists on the world, it exists somewhere.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and again, kind of describing the way they lived life, uh, from an Afrofuturist perspective, but only because of the very rigid Western linear patriarchal violent model we've been given. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just came into, the technology that I've been looking for is African spirituality. It is hoodoo. It is the practices and ways we've evolved our magic and our technology, and we've always had the access to that. So that's largely what the book is. It is a reclamation of those things. It's kind of acknowledging the things I've had to accept and embrace about myself, and even coming to the point of announcing that, oh, I'm publishing a book, like taking myself seriously enough to tell the public that that's what's happening, has been its own Sankofa Shadow Work, has been its own getting in my shit and looking at myself and looking into what am I hiding, and what is still there to be healed, and what I'm carrying, and whether or not it's actually even mine. And that's just been in the last few months, let alone like the last decade. But that's that's what the book is.
I love
Yes.
that. Look, I'm not gonna cry, but everything that you said made me so emotional, and it just feels like, as you were speaking, just a wave of emotions came over me because you, like, what you're doing, like, our world needs this. Every, I come across so many people who are not aware, so many of our people who are not aware and are just, just letting the waves take them anywhere, not recognizing they can go and walk through the waves. You don't have to just go where everybody's telling you to go. You don't have to, you know, like, we are so much stronger than, and I hate to use the word strength because that's just a word that represents us, but we are, like, we can resist, and things don't have to be the way that they are.
Absolutely.
Especially with us, when you're sitting in discomfort, it doesn't have to be that way. And I just love that you're using your gift to lift us up, and it's something that I always say, like, when you create something, and when you create something, so many people are going to see it, and you just don't know the magnitude of what it's going to do for someone. It's so expansive. Like, we cannot even fathom how much change and how much support your story is going to provide for our people. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you
That
for
is.
saying so.
Well, and then, the journey, I mean, just the journey to creating this podcast, like you said, is like looking at your own stuff and asking yourself, like, is this even mine? Like, are the fears
Mm-hmm.
or the insecurities that I have, is this mine? Like, doing the shadow work and, going deep and releasing is, I mean, it's happening in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the transformation work is necessary, and it's something that you don't realize until you're in it, until it's happening. And like you said, like, we have technology, that we have access to technology. We just have to, wake up, be aware, research, experience. And that has been for me, like, the defining moment is that, like, using the technology that was gifted, or that I've discovered. And so, if you want to speak to, like, your transformation, or just specifically, shadow work, and how, you know have you shared it with your family, and, how have they been affected by it, or are they open to it, are they not open to it? Has it triggered anyone, has it changed anyone?
Um, yes. So I think my family is very positively influenced. I grew up in a very spiritual, creative household, regardless of like the language you used. Um, Christian. My dad was Baptist. My mom was Seventh Day Adventist, and so there was a Christian lens, but also just very esoteric, very and ancestral veneration very regularly, whether we called it that or not. And that has a lot to do with Gullah Geechee culture as well. It was just a very matter of fact part of how we engaged. So I think they have raised us, both me and my brother, I feel like, to be comfortable in talking to them about where it is that we are or
Mm-hmm.
where it is that I am. So less than me being like, let me tell y'all about shadow work. Let me
Mm-hmm.
tell y'all about healing epigenetics. It's more like, look at this, just look at what I'm learning. This is fascinating. Or
Mm-hmm.
this is what I've been doing. I watch or I listen to Holy Smokes podcast. Christian A. Smith is a pastor who deconstructs Christianity,
Mm.
and just very casually just watching it and listening to it. And I'll hear my parents just listening to this
Yeah.
podcast. So I say that to say I am in good company. And I absolutely do think there's been a positive influence and it is I have moved in and out of gratitude at for living in an intergenerational household to
Mm.
living with my parents and my brother as an adult. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
in and out of gratitude. That has been shadow work too, to be with your family of origin as an adult
Yes.
and you know
Mm-hmm.
see your shit, see everyone's shit, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently in a place of deep gratitude, deep gratitude. So I feel like everybody is meeting themselves again in a new way and um, reconnecting with their ancestors. And very intentionally, I just set up a family ancestor altar. Like I have one my own. I
Mm-hmm.
have several in my room, but my mom wanted to set one up, so that is now in the dining room.
Oh
Um,
wow. Wow.
yeah, really cool stuff. So I'm grateful for that. And between 2020, when everything shut down and we were all here and it was like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
So much learning, so much seeing myself for myself, sort of seeing the reasons I have hidden, recognizing storylines of ways I've just disassociated, even your introduction about how significant our family has been. Um, I told my life coach the other day, I just realized I was on Gullah Gullah Island like a few months ago. And I know that sounds like, what are you talking about? But I learned very early at age 8. Pay attention to Black kids at age 8. I learned after we finished Gullah Gullah Island, we came back home to Beaufort, South Carolina. We went to public school. We were just back in our regular life.
Mm-hmm.
That it set me apart in a way that I was not trying to be set apart. And that
Mm.
my parents were perceived as this kind of undeserved privilege that I had. I think in some ways because they were on Gullah Gullah Island, of course, they were on television, but also just the ways that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, there was both that and then this perception that because I was this kind of shy, quiet girl, I was really that way because I was stuck up and I thought I was better than everybody else. And I have this story of like my fifth grade graduation. I told my parents, don't cheer, like, don't be loud because, don't want anybody to feel bad because
Yeah.
I'm being celebrated at graduation where everybody's celebrating. And they honored my wishes, I remember that. But of course, all the people who were projecting that shit on me, all of their families was loud as hell at the graduation because that's how we are at graduation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I I have been healing from that up until like last year.
Oh wow.
Um, not wanting to be seen, of trying to back up, of disassociating myself, of really feeling like, well, no, my parents were on television, not me.
Mm-hmm.
I was just on there a couple of times. Like to hear adults, to hear our peers now be like, "Oh, it was so significant to see you on Gullah Gullah Island with your hair like my hair."
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm like, and I would have this time last year I would have been like, "Oh, you don't mean that. You're just saying that because you know that I'm their child, not because that is actually a real way that you experienced me."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that has been such a going back to get myself,
Mm.
to see myself more clearly, to allow myself to be seen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
We need you.
Yes. Yes. I feel that. I really do. I feel that for real. It's
Hmm.
yes.
I guess let you know, at the time that the show was on, I was a little girl, but I was living in Queens, New York. Not Jamaica, Queens. I don't remember which part it was, but I was about 7 and 8 years old because I went to that school for second and third grade. And I was maybe one, like the only little black girl in the class, in one of the class, and then another one I was one of two of us. You know, but the area that I was living in was not black centered. Um, and I would talk, to my friends. I'm like, "Yo, you guys watching Gullah Gullah Island?" And I was told they were not allowed to watch shows with black people on there. And so at the time, I'm just like, "What?" I wasn't aware that that was even a problem because it was a newer area that I had moved to. The other area that I lived in was, it was just completely different, around more of our people. And I'm just like, just taken aback by it. And at the time, I had a lot of self hate because I didn't have a lot of friends. I wanted my hair to be straight. I wanted my skin to be lighter. I wanted to dress it differently. I just wanted to be more like them so that they could at least accept me. And to be able to see, well, I'm watching Gullah Gullah Island. I see all the little girls on there with their hair just like mine, talking about food like mine. Your mother favors my mother. I'm like, like I'm here with my family watching TV, and it was like my great escape. And I just look forward to it all the time.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to share that.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Yeah, it was definitely, even the way that the show came to be was grace and magic and manifestation and ancestral intervention. And who would have ever thought that it would be what we continue to learn that it is, what we
Yeah.
continue to recognize. And I feel like as a family, uh, stand in more than ever before, for all the reasons that it's like, how dare you exist as yourself? How
Mm.
dare you be who it is that you are? Uh,
Mhm.
and so,
Yeah.
thank you for that reflection.
Well, the words that you used to describe your book just now, or excuse me, that you used to describe the show, I feel like those that could go right to your book. Like it is a exactly as you said, and it's transformational for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Well, I know we have to move forward. Do you mind sharing how the show came to be? Like just the magic of that, because we're gonna move to our manifestation segment. That's what this podcast is all about too. Is I said what I said, but the magic and the manifestation of that show. To me, I'm like, I started playing it on YouTube recently for my daughter because she's 3 now and she can, understand what shows are, and just hearing the music. I'm like, I need to be playing this music in the background so I can manifest something for my life, because this is like, just hearing the music takes you to a different place, like the song. And so, can you share with us a little bit about of how that came to be?
Absolutely. So my parents, like, they are griots, they are culture bearers. And in 1986, I think they got married in 1985. In 1986, my father published his first book, Reminiscences of a Sea Island Heritage, Legacy of Freedmen on St. Helena Island, about his island that he grew up on and what made them special that he always knew was special about them. And at the time, they weren't identifying as Gullah Geechee people; they identified as Sea Islanders.
Okay.
But he and my mother took the book on the road essentially. They started to interpret and tell stories and sing songs interpreting this book. And the book consisted of oral histories of elders and people he grew up with on the island, and some original songs and poetry, and these incredible black and white pictures, these black and white photographs. And they just created a multimedia presentation and were like just doing the chicken circuit, the chitlin circuit, like going to schools and going to auditoriums.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just doing their thing. And my mom became friends with Gloria Naylor, the author. She was on St. Helena Island, I think, for research. I don't know. No, she had already written Mama Day because she was in the talks to turn Mama Day into a film. And she asked my parents, I think, just to like help her get the house set up for these like Hollywood people that were coming into town to talk to her, including a friend of hers from college, Maria Perez. And the conversation went something like, we're trying to basically get diversity on TV. We're trying to get diversity on Nickelodeon. And maybe this would be cool. And maybe we could do a show about y'all. Y'all do cool stuff. Maybe we could do that.
Oh wow.
And my parents were like, yeah, right. I don't know if I think my brother may have been born at this time. Yeah, he was born in 93. The show aired in 94. So like he
Okay.
might have been an infant,
Mm-hmm.
and within the next year they were on television. No agent,
Wow.
no plan, no. We wanted
Wow.
let's do a television show for Black kids. Now they
Mm-hmm.
were very intentional once it came to be like
Right. Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
there's a way that we want to see ourselves and we
Right.
want
Mm-hmm.
people to see us. There's a level of respect and care and cultural authenticity that is just going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, it was like in hindsight now, it's like, oh, all the different things that had to take place, all the different conversations, the different marriages, divorces, births, like
Mm-hmm.
moves across, all kind of things that brought them together to do that ended in 98 and ended traumatically,
Oh.
ended very sadly. So again, all these reasons that there has been such a disassociation for a
Mm-hmm.
multitude of reasons, that
Mm-hmm.
there has been so many wounds around um, what has been such a gift to so many.
Mm.
But again, even the process of reclaiming, and one of the reasons that we're even in a place to do so is because my brother has not only been so adamant and like um, standing in who we are, but also his desire to reimagine Gullah Gullah Island for an adult audience and to kind of tell these stories in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Like because he's been so adamant about that for years, we are finally in a place for a multitude of reasons. Like we had to all individually do all kind of work
Yes.
to get to the point where we could celebrate the 30th anniversary, where we could kind of launch and share the pilot for this reimagining of the show. It's been
Yes.
a lot of seeing the self, a lot of weeping, a lot of moaning, a lot of gnashing of teeth, a
Yes.
lot of forgiveness, a lot of reframes, a lot of telling the story differently. I was in a fellowship called the Elder Garden Fellowship, and the elder garden, I want to say Field Guide to a Journey of a Lifetime, is by Sally Z Hare. And she was a kindergarten teacher, so she talks about how kindergartners have this place to go and learn, and where the elders go to learn to be elders.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
is the premise of her book, and she created this fellowship that I was invited to be part of. But one of the things I remember most from the book was her saying, my story isn't my life. My story is how I make meaning of my life. And
Mm.
it was so like, it was just so
Wow.
profound. to me. And so thinking about, you hear people talk about being the main character and main character energy, but thinking
Mm-hmm.
about it as a writer, as a narrator, as a griot, as a black girl who's loved black girl protagonist, it's like, oh, if I'm the main character and the writer and the narrator, this is about to be a good fucking story. And
Exactly.
Right.
she is liberated and she is trying. If I am the writer and the narrator, then it's not like, damn it.
Right.
It's not the internal voice that I could have for myself. It's
Mm-hmm.
something that I have been developing. And so just the process of healing and then having to go back and be like, okay, if I believe something different, then this story is outdated. And that kind of, and in some ways that even sucks because this story is so familiar and so seductive and so comfortable. This storyline about my struggle is
Mhm.
me to get to another place where it's like, oh wow, there's another way to look at that too. Like there's another
Mm-hmm.
way to experience this too. There's another way to hold myself.
Mhm.
So a lot of that.
Wow. Yeah, that is a. I mean, because we talk about like, I mean, that is making your life. That is
Mm-hmm.
manifesting, reclaiming it in that way. Like I am the narrator. I can be and do whatever, and I can write it. I can act it out. I can make my own story, and so yeah, that is. I feel all of that, and I love all of that. But what are you currently manifesting?
That's such a great question. Um, so two things. So I want to say, I said earlier, I was in the academy and I left because they were nuts. I'm going to take that back because I don't want to be ableist. I want to say that I left because it was really violent and warped, and I could see how it was hurting me.
Mm,
Um, and so I want to bring that back around to say that there has also been ongoing healing around the shame and resentment for that process. I very much wanted to be part of the, small percentage of Black women doctorates. I
mhm,
very much wanted to be in that cohort. That was for a long time the story for me. And so a lot of grief around letting that go and
mhm,
accepting, that my path is different than what I anticipated.
mhm,
And so I want to say that am I am manifesting the life worthy of the badass that I am within this
mm,
context of empires falling down and everything's
Yes.
fucked up and and in disarray. And also
Mm-hmm.
I really am who I say I am. And
mm,
I've actually been her a long time. I've been her longer than
Mm-hmm.
I knew it. And
mhm,
I'm manifesting a life that affirms that continues to affirm that. I'm
mm,
manifesting a life that affirms the shadows that I have integrated and the new stories that I'm telling about myself. I'm manifesting a world where, we really do know that we're enough already and that we have everything that we need and we know how to show up for ourselves and one another and yeah, return to ourselves. That's what I'm manifesting. Accessible education for everybody at every level that they can learn,
yes,
and accessible spirituality for everybody to return back to themselves and their ancestors so that they can know all the things that have been orchestrated and all the different things and paths that have crossed to bring them to the present moment with their path and their purposes and their ways of being. I'm manifesting that.
yes, yes. I feel that. I feel that. I feel that. Yes.
Thank you. That was such a broad answer, but that's what came to mind in the
No,
moment.
that was good. That was
Yeah.
great. That's just that goes along with um what Alyssa and I have been talking about, the phrase "I am that I am." Like You are the shadow. I am the shadow. I am the light. I am everything. I am all of it, all at once, at all times. And I'm allowed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
And that makes us invincible when we recognize that. Like, nobody can take anything away from you
Yeah.
at that
Mhm.
point.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it requires a lot of focus and intention to remember, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
to learn that lesson and then remember it, to kind of choose to be in the vibration of things that affirm it as opposed to the things that really nurture and fulfill and uphold the old stories that have been everything,
Mm-hmm.
have been my why and my reason and my justification for it all. But yes, we are. I am all of those things. Like
Yes.
you said, I am all of those things, and there's space and grace for that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And the story. I forgot to say thank you for sharing the story about the show and how it came to
Mm-hmm.
be in your family. Jessica and I, we were just so excited when you said yes. We're like, should we talk about the show? Like, we don't want her to think like we're too obsessed. But it's a beautiful. I feel like it's a beautiful just recognition of it, and it reframes and it allows us to put things into perspective. And so thank you for being open with that. And we didn't want to seem like crazy people.
Thank you for asking. Thank you. This is part of the, like, I am who I say I am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Being more comfortable with those stories and telling those stories in a different way. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yes. I knew. I found you on Instagram. I'm an Instagram person, and so I found you through your brother's Instagram because I was watching a show. I think we were watching All American or something. A show that
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he looks so familiar. Like, let
Mhm.
me look him up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is who this is. And my husband's like, oh, okay. So I saw it and I found you from his Instagram. I'm like, and I don't even know if I followed him or not. I'm like, no, I need to follow the sister. She, for some reason, I immediately like identified with you. Like, I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I just I was like, oh my gosh, she is me. Like we need, and I don't even know how long I've been following you on Instagram, but and then when I saw you were coming out with the book, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly what we need. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, do you see this? This is I knew she was like us. I knew it.
Mm-hmm. Girl, when we
So
even when we read your bio, even watch you on other, I'm like, God, Sarah's our person. It's just so exciting.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
So
grateful.
exciting.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. But so, well, we're gonna move on to because I know we gotta keep to a certain time. We
Uh-huh.
don't want to hold you too long, but we're gonna move on to our next segment, which is I got a nerve for that, which is
Yes.
herbalism, spiritual technology that we have and that we are aligning with our plant medicine and our herbs. I'm actually about to start a spiritual herbalism apprenticeship in like 2 weeks. And I'm like,
Ooh.
oh my goodness, I'm about to be in it. I'm like, I'm scared and nervous because I mean, I'm already having like things happen to me. I'm like, oh, this is what the embodiment is. Like, this is real. Like, I'm about to open up something. I know I'm gonna be held. I know I'm gonna be transformed. I know this is gonna be necessary, and the time is now. But we wanted to ask you: have you aligned with any plants or herbs on your journey? And if so, do you want to share them with us?
So the herb I want to name is life everlasting. And
Oh, yay.
yes, big hoodoo herb, indigenous to the southeast. I want to say a lot of Gullah Geechee people use it as well, and I would say it's a herb for healing a multitude of things. I
Mm.
have been drinking it for tea since I was a child because it's a hallucinogenic. I don't know if I said that right. A hallucinogenic. The police used to burn it if they found it in your yard. So my
Wow.
cousin had a field of it that he gave us a big vat of. and the police burned all this herb out his yard. Um, but anyway, it's still something that we can get from folks who know how to forage it, and I use it very regularly. Last year, I was in an energy work training. I was trained in the Kinga energy medicine, and I was undergoing an energetic attunement from my teacher, um, getting ready to go into it and going on a walk around my neighborhood the same way I walk everywhere all the time. And I saw some life everlasting. And then I saw it in like four different places, just all around this same circuit that I've been on. And I mentioned the energy work because I think it had a lot to do with the attunement and the space that I was in at the time.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
now, even working with it energetically, feeling like she chose me and called me in that way feels really important. So yeah, that's something that I feel really good and joyous about. Also, I love lavender. I love mugwort. We have an herb garden, and so I don't know necessarily how everything works, but I work with things intuitively. I make my own spiritual baths, and
Oh,
Oh,
good.
yeah, that feels
yes.
good.
Yes.
Yes,
That's
life
awesome.
everlasting grows in my backyard. That's why I got
Oh wow,
excited.
cool. Yeah, it is so
And it
exciting.
looks magical the way that it grows.
Does.
Wow.
And I love that the the balance between life and death and the very thin line between the worlds. I feel like that's something my instructor told me I could
Mhm.
work with it around death work, around ancestor work, around veil and shadow works. I feel like it just came right with that. Shout out to Jordan.
Yes. Oh wow. That is a magical, 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 magical.
I felt like I leveled up very much. Like that was
Yes.
the strong indication that I leveled up that I
Yes.
found.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
that's
That.
those are the signs that we talk about in the segment. Um when we're talking about the herbs, like that call out to us, the herbs that we speak about is always what has added value to our lives. And,
Mhm.
Alyssa and I, we spend a lot of time with the plants, and we spend a lot of time, whether it's growing them, seeing them, touching them, drinking them, rubbing them on our skin, working with them in some way. And it's like it's just another pathway of transformation, and it's another way that we have stayed spiritually connected because, as we mentioned in one of the episodes, like our ancestors, when they had to make long treks and were taken from their land, they didn't know that they would see the same plants, right? They had to figure out, okay, well, I know this plant at home. Oh, wait, but this looks just like, they had to figure that out. And it's like, no matter where you go, no matter where you're traveling to, um, God is always with you. And you sometimes see that when you see a plant that you're familiar with. Then it's like, oh, like all of a sudden, you feel at home, you feel loved and all that. And if that makes sense, I feel like I went kind of around, but like the plants show up like a good friend, like a good omen, like, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. Like you are on the right track.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Especially if
Like
they've been around, like you said, they've been on your circuit. Like, oh shoot, I pass by this every day. I never even
all
seen
the
it.
time.
Like
Right.
that would happen to me all the time in Arizona too. Like, what? This is right here. I didn't even know. Like I've been seeing this. It's in my, I guess it's in my realm. And you just now
Mm-hmm.
you're on a different frequency. The work had to be done. And so you're like, okay, yes, I see it
Yes.
now. So yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. We want to segue into witchy shit.
Yeah.
In this segment, we talk about all things witchy. So, and it's
Mhm.
witchy not in the, I want to say, negative connotation, but things that would be absurd, or maybe in the Christian church would say, you can't do that, that's evil. It's different tools and practices that we are reclaiming to say, this is us, this is what we do, and this is how we stay connected. You call yourself a time traveler, right? And you always mention that the South is a portal, and like We need to know your experiences with time traveling.
Thank you for that question. Whew, okay, so I'm going to start by saying I was looking up The South as a Portal, the essay, yesterday or the day before for something, and The South is a Portal meaning populated. So I clicked on it, and an AI overview came up of The South as a Portal. And I looked thinking that regardless of what it says, obviously it's going to say, coined by Sarah. It don't say nothing about me, but it's also inaccurate. It's very vague. It's very surface level. It is like, you might go to the South and feel like you're in a different world, and portals and slavery in the Civil War. And, there's a good cuisine. So I bring that up because it was so strange that this like super wonderful technology was so clearly void of and could not articulate the spirit of what I was talking about. It was just such a striking example that this technology can't be duplicated. That's us and that spirit, and it can't be grasped. But I would say I started recognizing that I was a time traveler when I worked at McLeod Plantation. I talk about in that essay that before I learned about Afrofuturism, I knew about Sankofa. I knew about Go Back and Get It. And I knew that my experience has always been existing in multiple timelines. There was a way that I was experiencing working at McLeod Plantation, along with the heavy ancestral presence on the land. But even just like the actual study, the actual being with the place in the present, it was like, oh, I spend a lot of time in slavery. And I kind of meant it in like research, but I didn't mean it like that because I I I I I was moving through time all the time. I feel like I just started getting more comfortable articulating and less pathologizing myself in the ways and wins that I've left my body. The intentionality behind it sometimes, the survival around it sometimes, and just the different spaces and timelines that I be in, the recognition that now is now whenever or wherever you are. Now is the same. And yeah, I've had experiences of moving in and out of my own lifetime in a multitude of lifetimes. I feel like works of fiction and channeling can just affirm the reality that we all have access to that. That time is not linear. That is a lie. The truth of us know that it moves like that. That we're not stuck. It's not static. And yeah, does that answer the question? Is that what
Yes, yes.
Does
Well,
it
and then I,
does.
well, I have, well, and I'm happy that you said that you had to stop pathologizing yourself, because I feel like when you are somebody that is able to, when you recognize that that's what you're doing, or you're experiencing things, and say, like I told you, my family is very magical, and my mom specifically, um, just like I know you mentioned in that thesis too, like ringing in your ears, and like just different things like happening in your body, aches and pains. And
dizziness?
she in particular is somebody who, she grew up in a time where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the doctor and see what's going on. Like you feel like something's wrong with you. You feel like I must be going crazy. But sometimes, like, the sickness has to come, or the pain has to come for you to transform and to elevate. I feel like I'm going around, and I'm glad that you said that that you had to step out of that pathologizing, if that's what you meant with that. Is that what you meant when you were?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Stop pathologizing myself and also embrace embrace my actual physical limitations so that I can accept and also acknowledge the multitude of ways that I can learn and be and gain information. I feel like accepting my body as a disabled body, accepting myself as neurodivergent, accepting that there are these ways that I exist in the world, they're not wrong,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And some of that, removing the pathology around those things, again, allows me to embrace these very matter of fact spiritual, witchy, ancestral, magical experiences of the day to day, of moving through time, of being able to manipulate time, of being able to perceive energy and,
Yes.
work
Yes.
with the elements and be in conversation with the elements. I had to recognize that I wasn't wrong. It's not me that's
It's not
wrong.
you.
Mm.
Exactly.
It's not. It's
Exactly.
not. This shit don't make no sense. Not.
Right.
I love that you keep saying that, by the way.
Right.
It sure
Yes.
does not.
It just
Yes.
don't.
I told
Yes.
Alyssa the other day, I was like, is this the reality now? Like, and it's
Yeah.
on a multitude of levels, not just on,
Mhm.
like, the main one that's out there. It's on so many levels.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And we are really, a lot of people reference the South as a portal. I never expected it to have that impact. It was another thing of me like seeing the things that I'm seeing and being like, oh, let me tell somebody I done seen some shit.
Mhm.
But the
Mhm.
line that it was very much a channeled piece of work.
Mm.
The last paragraph, I talk about entering and creating a new paradigm and getting into some shit that we've never seen before. And I forget that. Like, I'm scared, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
I'm scared. I'm sad. I'm devastated. I know that the empire has to fall. I
Mhm.
know that, like, the planet, is calling for a new thing, a new and old way of showing up and being. And I'm also very scared. I be really sad. Sometimes I don't know. Um, a lot of times I don't know. But trying to, stay in the knowing, trying to spend more time in the knowing, spend
Mm-hmm.
more time in the reality of the plants and the elements and the nonlinear time and the examples of healing that, only another black girl will ask you to expound upon, that are so present, that are also coexisting as this shit falls.
Yeah.
How are you staying grounded?
I love to be outside.
Mm.
Mm.
I love the water. I love working with herbs and plants. I smoke. I am on meds. I'm on antidepressants. I meditate.
Mhm.
I do a lot of intentional energy work, and nervous system regulating work.
Mm. Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
what I've been doing a lot of. And I've been letting myself feel my feelings, which is still, I'm still learning how to do it. It's still so uncomfortable. I had such a clear example, I'm gonna say yesterday or the day before, where like it was just devastating. Everything was so devastating, so
Mm-hmm.
devastating. And I had to just lean into it and cry and not feel bad that I was crying.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Really actually get to the other side of the feeling and remember something else,
Mhm.
like alongside this devastation, that in fact this heavy pain and like tightness that I'm feeling, it could be an absolutely perfectly reasonable response to the chaos of the world. It also could have been some ancestral shit. It
Mhm.
really might not even have been mine, but
Mhm.
had I run from it as opposed to just allowing myself to feel it and express it, yeah, I would have missed out. I would have missed out on the very clear example of, girl, you will not die. And the amount of times I gotta remind
Mm.
myself, I gotta remember again, you won't die.
You
As
sound like
someone
me.
who really navigates thoughts of like of not being here, of ideation,
Yes. Yes.
and all the things that can feel like absolute sudden obvious death. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you've made it again. You've made it again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can
Yeah.
relate to that.
We all can. We all can. But we're gonna close out the episode, but I wanted to close with the last question. Is I know because there's still so much. I'm like, we need more time. Oh my gosh. But what you mentioned also too, using pleasure. I know that's a kid, like we could go on and on about that. Jessica knows that's my thing. So I wanted to ask specifically, like, if you wanted to share what pleasure practices or rituals that you use to, I mean, because obviously we are in the pain, we're in the shadow, we want to experience it all, but there's it's two sides to it, pain and pleasure. So
Absolutely. I love to cook.
mhm,
I find great pleasure in working with food and being in the kitchen. I kind of want everything about it to be my way.
mhm,
And so I've had to accept that sometimes that's not the conditions in which I'm going to get my pleasure. Like I've had to accept that sometimes I have to cook when everybody else in the kitchen, but don't miss out on my, this thing will bring me pleasure, and
yeah,
also allow myself to do that. I'm really leaning into pleasure. I don't want to say I'm leaning into pleasure that's not sexual. I'm leaning into pleasure that's not necessarily associated with another person.
yes,
So the things that are pleasurable to me, sexual, are not. I love to smell good. I love baths. I love when my skin feels silky. I love the butters. I love to be really intentional about slowing down and moisturizing my body. I
hmm,
think a lot, especially because I've spent a lot of time with my grandmothers and them needing help moisturizing, them needing help like lotioning their feet, lotioning their hands, lotioning their arms, and really being intentional like what a gift that I can slow down and touch myself lovingly and put pressure where pressure needs to be for myself. So
hmm,
those are some things that I'm doing pretty intentionally right now. Trying to find those avenues and squeezes of joy and pleasure, and then being like with the cooking, like, no, you like this, Sarah, so please get out your room and go cook. And then be
hmm.
really proud of yourself that you chose to do this thing that you needed to do so you could survive this day.
Yes,
Yes.
Mhm.
yes. Oh yeah, I love that. Yes. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Jessica?
A lot. A lot, but we're out of time. I'm like, just in awe of, how you are coming forward and, just being real and showing yourself. And that was the main reason that Alyssa and I wanted to start this podcast, because we really felt a strong urge to say, like, we think more people need that.
Hmm.
And we, experienced that for ourselves from other people that we were following, other teachers that we've learned from, and decided, well, let's make ourselves one of those people too. And we are so happy. I know I'm speaking for you too, Alyssa, but we're so happy, Sarah, that you are here operating in your truth,
Hmm.
the truth of it all, and just being 100% you. And the South is a portal thing. I have so much that I could say about that. I've had my own experiences with traveling to different spaces and places here in Florida, that I'm very sensitive to the spiritual realm, so I can't allow myself to enter different parts of Florida, just because I can feel it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for blessing us with your presence and
Yeah.
you
Thank
know
you.
all that you've said. And I can't wait to get your book. I think it's out for pre-order right now, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes, you can
yes. If
pre-order it at my website, saramakeba.com, and it is coming out in the spring. I'm gonna let spring be broad and spacious, but that's when it's coming out.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I've already
Yeah.
pre-ordered it, so it'll be
Thank
coming.
you, and
Yes.
thank y'all so much. Thank
Yeah,
you for holding this space.
where can everybody follow you? I'm sorry to cut you off. Where can
Okay.
everybody follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Sara Makeba. My website, saramakeba.com. I'm going to start writing on Substack. So saramakeba.substack. Um, that's where you can mainly find me right now. That's where I'll be.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, thank
Mm-hmm.
you. This was so good. Like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is exactly what it needed to be. And I'm so happy. I'm
Yes.
so happy. Yes, thank you all for joining us. And we will see you later. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.